Hi, thanks for tuning in to High on Horror. I'm Drew.
And I'm John. This episode and every future episode is dedicated to all the horror hounds and smokers out there who want to expand their knowledge of the genre and have a good time.
Where Are the Monsters? Part 3 is here. These are our little love letters to monster movies that impacted our lives and that don't shy away from showing the monster. There is no, oh, it was all in my head, I'm the monster, there is not a real monster shit in these episodes.
It's not trauma.
Yeah, we are celebrating monsters and shock and awe and the imagination that they've given us. Today we're covering Godzilla vs. Destoroyah from the Heisei Era of Godzilla films, which spanned from 1984 to 1995. And I personally am excited for this episode because we finally get to do an episode of Godzilla. And those who tune in regularly know how much I've been itching to cover a Godzilla movie.
Oh, what? You like Godzilla? Who knew?
And what a better one to do than this one. So we're going to take a deep dive into the waters of one of the greatest kaiju battles and movies of all time. All that and more today on High on Horror. Interviews, reviews, and the latest news all rolled into one. So a lot of people, like in my close circle of friends and stuff, like actually assume that I've been this huge Godzilla fan all of my life because I'm such a fan. But the truth is I didn't become a real Godzilla fan until 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters came out. I liked the 2014 one, but it wasn't enough to like make me an actual fan. And growing up, my father, was big on Godzilla. Me and him weren't close, so we very much had our own paths, and we didn't much care to look at what one another was interested in. And I always kind of avoided Godzilla and the other movies, and put them down for being stupid or cheap or old or whatever. And it was more of like an I don't like my dad, so I can't like anything he likes, or I'll be like him scenario. However, my friend and I went to see Godzilla King of the Monsters in theaters in IMAX. And I walked out of that theater a full-blown fan. I loved that movie so much that it made me forget about my dad. And the first thing that I did when I came home was buy and look up all of the other 29 Godzilla films and watch them in a non-stop marathon multiple times.
I was getting a lot of messages about Godzilla movies.
And yeah, I couldn't get enough. I loved how Godzilla can be this ultimate beacon for hope, but also be your worst nightmare, and even be a social commentary on karma and how humanity is at fault for such a creature existing, And I read everything I could get my hands on about the movies. I spent a ton of money on figures, and I bought every Godzilla comic book known to man. My life legit changed when I saw Godzilla King of the Monsters, and my big black heart that's full of my love of horror movies just kind of freed up a little corner to fit some Godzilla in there. And at 35 years old, it's hard for me to stumble onto something new and have it like take over like that, like Godzilla did. Like nothing's ever really made me do that before, since I've never like just completely changed and just full blown like went into fandom of something. Yeah,
for me it was kind of the opposite. My dad was not really into Godzilla. His monster of choice was King Kong. Also, the only acceptable version to him was King Kong, the 1933 RKO version.
Nice. Okay.
He didn't care for the Jeff Bridges remake.
I didn't care for that one either. He's a purist. Your dad was a purist.
I remember I went with my dad and some other dude he was friends with from his senior center that he went to, and we went and saw the Peter Jackson King Kong. And I was like, wow, that was pretty good. My dad's response was, it's okay. Like,
shit.
That was my dad's response to it.
I like the Peter Jackson one.
Yeah, I like it too, but it was just, 1933, and what's it, the Joey Diaz, 1933 King Kong, or go fuck your mother. But, he's like us with the Halloween remakes. Like, anything remake is blasphemy pretty much for Halloween.
I understand.
But I mean, he still liked the sequels like us, like how we like Halloween 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Like, he still liked the OG sequels to the Kong movies, but, as for Godzilla, I only saw a handful of the older films when I was younger. I'm not sure, being a child, your memory's not fully clear, but I want to say I saw a Godzilla on Monster Vision at some point.
That sounds amazing. I haven't, but
I
would
want to
love
say
to
I
see Joe
did.
Bob
I mean, I
posting.
could be completely wrong. I was a kid, but I remember like watching the black and white Godzilla movies, and like my dad would just make fun of them for being cheesy. But I'm like, man, you still like 1933 Godzilla, King Kong. Like some of those effects are pretty cheesy. So like, come on, like you can't hate on Godzilla. I mean, anytime I saw him on TV, I would watch them, and my dad would kind of reluctantly watch them with me. He didn't hate Godzilla; he just wasn't a big fan. He thought kind of like the Peter Jackson King Kong. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. So let's get into the Godzilla discussion here. Almost every monster is man-made in one way or another. Sometimes the monster is a reflection of the evil of a man's soul and the darkness in it, and Godzilla is no different. He was created out of fear. In 1954, there was nuclear testing on Bikini Atoll that left a fishing vessel accidentally irradiated, and the Japanese press called it the second atomic bombing of mankind. Out of this fear came the horror movie Godzilla, a movie about the karma of man's evil cashing its check on our asses. Godzilla's skin is keloid skin. His body from head to toe is covered in burn scars to signify the scars of those affected by nuclear tests.
Yeah, we'll go over a little bit of the history here of some atomic weapons. Most of you, if you're American, are probably familiar learning in school about the Manhattan Project, which ran from 1939 to 1945. It was the top secret research program initiated by the United States during World War II. It was aimed to develop the first atomic bomb, and it was led by scientists such as J. Robert Oppenheimer. The project successfully constructed and tested the first atomic bomb, codenamed Trinity, in July of 1945. Speaking of Oppenheimer, I'm looking forward to that Nolan movie.
Yes, man.
Nolan could make a movie on grass growing, and I'd be like, I want to see that.
Agreed.
And his trailers also like hardly ever show anything, and I'm just like,
still epic. There's somehow
all I need
like,
to see is Christopher Nolan, and I'm like, yep.
And that fucking Hans Zimmer score blasting, and you're just like, oh, I'm in. Yeah.
Yep. All it's got to say is Christopher Nolan, and I'm just all right. I already got a ticket. Anyway, in August of 1945, we had the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bombing was the first of its kind, including devastating loss of life in the immediate aftermath, and then the prolonged effects of the radiation from the bomb. This led to the surrender of Imperial Japan, and brought about the end of World War II. And then following World War II, there were post-war nuclear arms race. Both countries, Russia and the United States, sought to develop more powerful nuclear weapons, and that led to the testing of numerous atomic bombs. Drew, you mentioned Bikini Atoll test, and those took place on the Marshall Islands, and those ran from 46 through 58. The test included the first post-war atomic bomb test, known as Operation Crossroads, in 1946, and multiple tests continued through the 50s, including the detonation of a thermonuclear or hydrogen bomb. The one test you mentioned was, that's a famous case, the Castle Bravo test. Mm-hmm. And the Soviet Union also embarked on an extensive nuclear testing program in 1949 in August. They successfully tested their first atomic bomb, ending the American monopoly on nuclear weapons. They conducted numerous tests through the 50s, including their first thermonuclear bomb test in 1953. And the yield of the atomic bombs increased substantially during this period. Hiroshima's bomb had a yield of around 15 kilotons, and that measures TNT in thousands of tons.
Oh, wow.
The Castle Bravo test that was conducted by the United States in 1954 produced an an unintended yield of 15 megatons. So instead of thousands, that's the equivalent to millions of tons of TNT.
My God.
So, like, that shit went quick.
Yeah.
Things that's the quote anchor, man, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, very much so. Jeez.
The Castle Bravo test highlighted the potential for massive destruction and the need for greater control over nuclear weapons. And the ongoing nuclear tests during this period contributed to the development of increasingly, as you can just hear from going from thousands to millions, increasingly powerful nuclear weapons and the refinement of nuclear technology. However, because of this shit. There was a lot of growing concerns about the destructive potential and environmental consequences of nuclear weapons, and that led to international efforts to curb nuclear proliferation and limit nuclear testing, culminating in the signing of the Partial Test Ban Treaty in 1963. Now, as for Japan after World War II, they were banned from creating atomic weapons. However, the Japanese public at large has always been against creating these kinds of weapons. They've put out opinion polls to see how people have felt, and every time it's overwhelmingly they don't want nuclear weapons. The trauma of the atomic bombing, coupled with the nation's commitment to pacifism, shared public opinion, and political discourse, the majority of Japanese citizens and policymakers have consistently opposed the development of the weapons, prioritizing disarmament and peaceful solutions to international conflicts. And it was just, I guess, a somewhat long, but a really brief version of going through all the nuclear weapons and bringing us up to, well, I guess a little bit of today with Japan, but more bringing us up to the 50s, getting us with all this nuclear background leading into Godzilla.
Yeah, it's just crazy shit, man, hearing that shit. But, yeah, so Godzilla vs. Destoroyah is the 22nd film in the Godzilla series.
God damn. I just want to jump in. All these Tyrese and, what's his name, Vin Diesel talk about, oh, has there ever been another franchise as successful as this? Well, goddamn, in 1995, Godzilla was already on his 22nd film. So.
Correct. Yeah, and this movie is a significant one because it's the final and apocalyptic chapter of the Heisei Era films. The first Heisei film was Godzilla 84, and there's 7 films in the Heisei Era total, and Godzilla vs. Destoroyah was Godzilla's swan song. The funny thing about the name Destoroyah, originally it was spelled Destroyer, and everyone in the movie even calls him Destroyer. Yeah. No one actually says Destoroyah, but for whatever reason, the title changed to Destoroyah with the AH at the end. And Akira Ifukube, who scored several Heisei Godzilla films, such as Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah in 1991, and Godzilla and Mothra, The Battle for Earth in 92, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, would make his last score. And director Kitao Okawara directed several Godzilla movies over the span of the Heisei Era and Millennium Eras, like Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 and Godzilla Final Wars and Godzilla 2000, one of the very best in the series. But before we get into the movie here, let's talk about the Godzilla and Destoroyah creature effects and costumes and those who brought them to life.
Originally, effects artist Koichi Kawakita had the idea of making Godzilla luminescent. He applied luminescent paint and reflective tape to a Godzilla suit, but this approach was considered too artificial looking. The final design involved attaching 200 small orange light bulbs to the suit, which had previously been used in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, and covering them with semi-transparent vinyl plates. However, the suit presented challenges for suit actor Kenpachiro Satsuma. The cable powering the light bulbs added extra weight to the suit, and the carbonic acid gas emitted by the costume nearly suffocated him on 6 different occasions.
Jesus.
Yeah, like, damn. Talk about dying for your art. Consequently, the Godzilla encounter with the Super X3, they utilized a suit that had been deemed expendable after its use in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. It was anticipated that the liquid nitrogen scene would cause irreparable damage to the original suit. And when it came to portraying Godzilla Jr. and Destoroyah, traditional suitmation techniques were employed. Since the Junior suit was nearly the same size as the main Godzilla suit, a small animatronic prop was used for scenes where Junior interacted with his father. In the scene where the JSDF bombards the immature Destoroyahs, Bandai action figures were used to bring the creatures to life. Kawakita incorporated more CGI into the film compared to previous installments, and CGI was utilized for depicting the freezing of Godzilla by the Super X3, showcasing helicopters, display computers, schematics, illustrating the consequences of Godzilla's meltdown, and illustrating Godzilla's demise. I will say there was some scenes you and I were both talking when we were watching it that you can just tell that they were models, like some of the ships and some of the stuff. You're like,
Yeah.
I guess it was
Miniatures,
maybe they needed a better perspective, or a different angle they were shooting from. But there was a couple times that even before you got the larger picture, especially that ship one, like right away you're like, oh, that's a model. That's a small model. Like I can tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
The suit actor who portrayed Godzilla, as I said, was Kenpachiro. Damn, I fucked it up after I did all that well, like pronouncing his name. Kenpachiro Satsuma. He's also known for his performances as Godzilla in several Heisei Era Godzilla films, including Godzilla vs. Billolante, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Mothra, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, among others. Unlike Godzilla, there was no specific suit actor exclusively designated for playing Destoroyah. Instead, they had a team of suit actors and puppeteers working together to bring together the different forms of Destoroyah to life. The specific individuals involved in playing the different stages and forms of Destoroyah have not been widely credited or specified. You would have figured at this point somebody would have stepped up and been like,
right.
Like, I was the one there fucking Godzilla up.
Yeah, I want to say you did really good, but it's Godzilla versus Biolante. You said Billolante.
Oh, I said Billolante?
Yeah, you did really good. Look, I'm giving you props. You did your research. Like you brought your shit for this. So
damn,
I ain't criticizing. I'm
way.
just helping you out.
Yeah, because there'll be some motherfucker. He mispronounced it. Anyway, it's hard not to notice the influence of the films Alien and Aliens on Destoroyah.
Yeah,
and just the film at large. Destoroyah is a multi-phase creature. There's 3 different phases?
I believe so. That I counted, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's 3. The tail, it got that little mouth thingy too. I don't know what you call that. And look at the guns. You gonna tell me that one, even the way they were holding it, looked like the M56
the Vasquez
Mark
gun.
Yep. The Vasquez,
Yep, exactly, 100%.
Yeah, like, dude, like, as soon as they were holding, I'm like, come on.
One of the many things that I love about Godzilla vs. Destoroyah is the visuals. And you have to really credit the cinematographers, Masahiro Kishimoto and Yoshinori Sekaguchi. I hope I'm saying these names.
That's what I go with.
For bringing the movie to life visually. The nighttime shots are beautifully lit, and the look of Godzilla's orange glowing body and eyes looks so amazing. This is known as Burning Godzilla, and the fact that the movie starts right away just pulls you in. No time for bathroom breaks. There ain't no time to shit, as Captain Spaulding would say. But by the way, Burning Godzilla wouldn't be seen again until 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, which marked the first time he'd burned in an American Godzilla film as well.
This Godzilla design is hands down my favorite. Like, of all the movies and all the different Godzilla designs, this one's my favorite. Zilla always looked like he in a bubble bath. Like, that shit's just always bubbling behind them. Yo, I'm just saying, like, if I was Godzilla, I'd be rolling blunts and just lighting them off myself. That's what I'm doing.
just touching it to your chest and just lighting it.
Puff it, throw a fucking Destoroyah around.
Do a spoof where it's just Godzilla just hotboxing all day, like just hotboxing the fucking
He
ocean.
decides not to destroy the city because he just smokes and chills out.
But
we're writing good movies. I mean, it'd still be better than some of the really bad Godzilla movies.
Yeah, 98. But anyway, one of the other things that I love about this movie is that, and it's key to mention, is that Destoroyah is the first kaiju to have fatalities. This fucking thing doesn't pull any punches and brings the fight to Godzilla more than anything ever has. This is the movie as a Godzilla fan where you ask yourself, is Godzilla gonna make it? Even if they don't explain how Destoroyah got the oxygen destroyer's power, who cares? He's a badass.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Destoroyah might have surpassed Mothra as my favorite kaiju.
Really?
Like, every form of it is badass. Like, that roach-looking form.
Yeah.
That, like, final form with, like, the horn. I mean, like, you say you worry for Godzilla. I would not have been upset if Destoroyah won. I mean, you can boo me all you want, but...
You gotta root for the bad guy.
I mean, I'm a heel guy, so...
Well, after defeating Space Godzilla, the United Nations Godzilla Countermeasure Center, or the UNGCC...
Yeah, you imagine, like, the actual UN had, like, a Godzilla division?
Hey, anything can happen, right? But they discover that... Birth Island is gone. It exploded, and Godzilla and Junior, his son, are missing. Godzilla makes an appearance, daunting his new look of glowing orange, and looks infuriated, destroying everything in his path, just lashing out. And Godzilla has those orange spots and steams because his heart is melting down from all of the power he absorbed from his island being destroyed. His island was destroyed from a volcanically triggered uranium deposit, so whenever he's in the water, he turns the ocean into a giant hot tub.
So that's why I got the bubble bath going on.
Yeah, yeah. And then we get to the plot of the film, which is that a college student, Kenkichi Yamane, grandson of Dr. Kohei Yamane, who encountered the first Godzilla, is hired to figure out Godzilla's condition and what it means and what will happen. And it turns out that when Godzilla's temperature reaches 1,200 degrees Celsius, as Mike Tyson did, Celsius, that he will detonate like a bomb, and the effect will essentially leave the world in ruin. The radioactivity that he is carrying is enough to end the world. So the goal becomes to stop Godzilla from blowing up.
Just get Godzilla to lay down in the water till he cools down, right?
Yeah, right. Just put him in some
See,
ice water.
that's why you get him hot. You hotbox him.
Just put him in some ice water.
Yeah, just get a bunch of ice and throw it in the ocean.
Who knows? Maybe that shit would have worked. They're gonna Van Damme him from Universal Soldier. Godzilla just chilling. Anyway, we're ridiculous, but yeah, then we discover that in an attempt to end world hunger, the government wants to use micro-oxygen to make fish and other aquatic edible life bigger. And thus, there'd be more to go around, I guess, when you catch one or something. However, the government also wants to use this micro-oxygen as a weapon to kill Godzilla.
So you're saying the government messed things up. Shocker.
And that they just have all just wacky ideas,
And they made Godzilla, so.
And this is one of my favorite points of the movie. At this point, they call the pilot in of the Super X2 from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2 to fly the Super X3 from Godzilla vs. Biollante to give us some aerial combat by shooting Godzilla with cooling lasers so he'd chill the fuck out, literally. And it doesn't stop Godzilla's meltdown, but it does incapacitate him for a little bit.
He got
takes a little weed nap.
Yeah, he got T-1000. They turned him into they froze him up for a minute, but then he came back.
That'd have been badass if he broke out like the T-1000.
His leg just falls apart when he's like trying to walk.
But yeah, so here's the part where we meet Godzilla's foe of the film, Destoroyah. In what is the only horror film scene in the movie, we just like you had mentioned earlier, the aliens thing. We discover that Destoroyah is a Precambrian era species that was mutated during the oxygen bomb's detonation in the first Godzilla film. But now, due to fucking construction of all things on the Tokyo Bay Aqua Line, they've awakened. And when we first see Destoroyah, it's a very James Cameron Aliens kind of way. Like you said, the soldiers hunting it, the guns and technology used. And after defeat via flamethrowers.
Oh shit! I forgot that in my. I was like Alien. I forgot all about the flamethrower.
Right. Yeah. Several more destroyers come to the surface and wreak havoc on the city and the JSDF, the Japanese Defense Forces, and that's when we learn that they can pull a fucking Megazord and form one giant creature as a result of being threatened, and then we see his big ass flying over Tokyo. And this is one of my favorite things, but you just can't explain it, but I love, is that like when you see Destoroyah flying, like whenever he flies over a building, it like just explodes. Like not even touching it, just hovering over it, and that bitch just starts sparking up and bomb and just explodes.
I think it has to do with that electricity.
Yeah, I guess.
Because he has that electricity.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the other thing is like Godzilla just don't have like one. They just straight trying to gank him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then now we get to Junior. We finally see Junior here. He makes his appearance. The UNGCC decides, hey, the best option to save the world is to make Godzilla fight Destoroyah. Sounds plausible, I guess. But they have Miki Segusa telepathically locate a maturing and angsty teenage Junior who's lost and looking for his dad, and they lure him to Destoroyah to use him as bait for Godzilla. And let me just say here that this movie doesn't have any characters that you actually care for. It's a monster movie, but there's not really character development either. So it was smart to use Miki and her relationship with Junior from prior films in order to actually include a relationship that you care about and feel for.
Yeah, look, I've always said the less human scenes in Godzilla movies, the better. That's why I like Godzilla versus Kong. Just let them motherfuckers duke it out. That's all I'm here for. It's in the title. It's a versus movie. Get the humans the fuck out of here. I don't want
Right.
to see them.
I hear you.
And this one does limit the humans, I feel. Like I said, just let me see some kaijus duking it out.
100%, man. You know, and yeah, Destoroyah fucks Junior up bad. You know,
Finish it.
yeah, but that doesn't stop Junior from trying, and you know, causing some of his own damage to Destoroyah. You know, this is a decent little battle that has you legit hoping Junior doesn't die, because it does look grim at times. And Godzilla awakens and is worsened in condition. His meltdown could destroy the world in a China syndrome like incident, where basically he'd create a hole in the earth, and I guess essentially everything would get sucked into it. Godzilla takes the bait and heads towards Junior and Destoroyah. And now all anyone can do is hope that Destoroyah can defeat Godzilla. They want Godzilla gone. And Godzilla arrives in time to see Destoroyah kick Junior's ass, and Destoroyah kills Junior by picking him up and dropping him onto a building whose rubble just like collapses on him. And Godzilla can't even mourn before he's already being attacked again and manhandled like no one's
Destroy
ever
don't play no shit.
manhandled him before. You know, and Godzilla picks himself up, and as his temperature increasingly rises to critical, he goes in for one final round, and this is where he owns Destoroyah. The hand-to-hand combat in Gore is awesome. They really dig into each other, literally, and but ultimately it's Godzilla's constant atomic breath that overwhelms Destoroyah, because he's just blasting him with that hot breath. Just literally hot breath. But yeah, and we see we legit see meat hanging off of Destoroyah's face, for God's sake. Like, he's in bad shape. He's fucking getting picked apart, and he decides, nope, never mind, I'm out, and tries to fly off. But the JSDF use their low temperature lasers, and they shoot him in the wings and blow him up, causing him to fall and explode a second time. And I will say that the Japanese army was effective in this movie. Like, they weren't a joke like the cops and military are in other movies. But that still does not explain how the same weapons they used on Destoroyah earlier didn't work, but now somehow they do.
Just don't think about it.
Yeah, but even Destoroyah couldn't kill Godzilla, who's proven time and time again to be perfect. Godzilla still dies, though. Godzilla first died in the 1954 original, and again in 1984. In this one, his meltdown occurs in what is honestly, to me, one of the most saddest and tragic things that you'll see as a monster movie fan. It's like that Frankenstein moment. It really pulls at your heartstrings. Using freezer weapons on Godzilla, they stop the world from ending, but the radiation levels in Tokyo make it uninhabitable. And until suddenly we see radioactivity cease.
Which isn't how that works.
Right, but don't think about it, remember? Suddenly, Tokyo isn't uninhabitable anymore, and we look through the smoke and debris in Tokyo for answers, to see an erect and fully mature Junior, alive and well. His dorsal plates are huge. Having absorbed all of his dad's energy, he is alive and well, and thus the story concludes with us, the audience, being reminded and having the comfort to rest on that Godzilla will always live on. Junior was supposed to be the new Godzilla, but they never followed up on it. Instead, 4 years later, Godzilla 2000 came out and started the Millennium Era. But okay, my rating, I'm biased, but 10 out of 10. It's bittersweet, and it's at its core, it's everything I could ask for in a monster movie or a Godzilla movie. When I was watching all the Godzilla movies, this was like the one that there's a lot of movies you sit through, and some of them can be kind of repetitive, but this was one of those ones where I shot up on the edge of my seat and was like, yo, what is going to happen? This is crazy. And it has complete rewatchability. It has heart, and I truly think this is this is the best ending for Godzilla, and I wouldn't change anything about it. Not all Godzilla movies can make you feel something, and this one does somehow, even though there's not really any character development. It's more just because you love Godzilla so much. But if there was never another Godzilla film, I'd be content with this having been the last one. And I have to ask you, John, what's your final thoughts, and what's your favorite scene or part?
All right. I was a little surprised when you originally were like Godzilla versus Destoroyah. I wasn't too familiar with it, but I would probably say I haven't seen all the Godzilla movies. I've seen a decent handful of them. This is probably my favorite Godzilla movie.
Oh shit! No, even
it was really
Godzilla
good.
versus Kong and the newer ones.
Yeah,
oh,
I like this one.
Awesome.
I still haven't seen Shin Godzilla, so
that's next.
take that for what it's worth. I haven't seen that yet. Yeah, 10 out of 10 for you. That's it's funny enough, the Rotten Tomatoes score. This is the number one ranked Godzilla movie.
Is it the number
it's
one ranked?
It's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
No shit.
I wouldn't say it's 100%.
Ranked?
There's definitely
Damn.
a couple things, some things we could pick out that's not so perfect about it.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it. I would give it an 8.7 out of 10.
Oh, shit.
I mean,
Very nice.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. As for like my favorite scene, I gotta say, any of the night scenes just looked incredible, especially with the glowing Godzilla.
Yeah. For
That
real.
Rhino gore was badass. when Junior took the horn.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was badass, man.
Yeah. So I mean, and all the fight scenes were cool.
Yeah, and that final fight scene for me, it's way more physical than you'd expect, right? Like you usually are used to seeing like Godzilla like and his foes shooting beams across from each other, atomic breath.
It's a lot of special
And
effects.
this one they get physical, and then there's gore and all, and these two kaiju's fuck each other up and leave it all out there. It's emotional, it's personal.
Yeah, Destoroyah. I've become a fan of Destoroyah after this movie. I really like. I was thinking like all your figures. I was like, damn, I want to Destoroyah.
Yeah, I gotta get one. He's coming. I gotta find one to get.
Like I don't even care what form it is. I'll take any of them. Like
just a little representation.
it's kind of cool. Like you don't really have any other foes of Godzilla that really have all these different phases to them.
Yeah.
And every single one of them was awesome.
And you got to think, right? Godzilla beat him at the very end when he was his most powerful. And even up until that point, he was losing. Godzilla was losing the fight. He had it in the bag at the very, very end. But up until that point, he was losing.
The more they kind of also pointed out, the more he's getting beat up and more radioactive, the stronger he's getting because of
Right.
that.
But my point is that
Yeah.
imagine if Destoroyah fought Godzilla like when he wasn't burning, how it would have been completely
Probably.
it would have been completely one-sided.
Well,
you know
they
what I
won't-
mean? Like if
But them
Godzilla
cowards won't make that movie.
right place, right time. All right, so let's get into the sequels and remakes.
Oh yeah. So
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump
Oh,
ahead.
no, I was gonna say. So your favorite scene was the final fight scene.
The final, just because of the gore and the violence.
Yeah, it was pretty damn good. All right, I'm gonna go over every sequel since Godzilla versus Destoroyah.
And this is the Millennium Era, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, it goes into all of them, but yeah, starting with the Millennium Era.
But in each one of their box offices, we had Godzilla 2000, which came out in 1999,
Yeah.
and that was 10 million. Godzilla versus, I'm gonna mispronounce this, Megaguirus.
Megaguarius.
Megaguarius.
Yes.
Okay. 2000, $18 million. Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack. I want to see that.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's pretty decent.
2001,
decent.
I made $16 million. And in 2002, we had Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which made $14 million. Godzilla Tokyo SOS in 2003. I mean, pretty much this was like Friday the 13th in the 80s. They're pumping one out every year.
Right. Yeah,
03,
essentially.
it made $20 million. Godzilla Final Wars in 04 made $12 million. Then we had a bit of a break, and then we got the American Godzilla in 2014, which made $529 million. And I thought it was okay.
Okay.
Like,
That's how I feel too. I wasn't, like I said, the
was
2014 one it was like, I thought Godzilla looked amazing, but I was like, the movie was okay.
it was also at night a lot, but it was not well lit. Shin Godzilla in 2016 made $77 million.
This marks the Reiwa era.
And then we had 3 animated films that were released on Netflix, so they don't have a box office. But it was Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters in 2017, City on the Edge of Battle 2018, and also in 2018, The Planet Eater. 2019, we had your favorite, Godzilla King of the Monsters,
Yeah.
$386 million.
This is much better than the 2014 version.
There's Shin Ultraman from 2021. It's not a direct Godzilla film. It's directed by Shin Godzilla's director, Hideki Anno. And it features similar themes and aesthetics. But
Yeah, I want to see that. I haven't seen it yet. I was supposed to see it in theaters, but my kid was sick. So.
And Godzilla vs. Kong from 2021 made $470 million.
Yeah, and then let's not forget we got another Godzilla movie coming out this November from Toho, and then we got Godzilla and Kong: The New Dynasty coming out next year from Legendary. So we got 2 Godzilla movies coming out in the next year. Pretty badass.
And most of the sequels reflect their box offices, as you see, and were not well received. Godzilla Final Wars placed the series on hiatus until there was a big enough demand to have Godzilla back. That was smart enough. They didn't end it. They just knew.
Took a break, yeah.
Eventually, they're going to want to see Godzilla again. It was a long time, but...
Final Wars is awful, though, man. It's so bad. Like, oh my god.
If you go off Rotten Tomatoes, most of the sequels are not in the top 10 of the series by score. In fact, 2 of the sequels are ranked in the bottom 6 of the franchise.
Oh, shit.
Godzilla King of the Monsters and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, which is considered the lowest ranked in the entire franchise by Rotten Tomatoes.
Damn.
Yeah, for some reason, as well as Godzilla King of the Monsters, that it was not well received.
Yeah, I think a lot of people liked that realism that was made in the 2014 one, but that was one of the things that took me out of it. But there's this meme that it's like Gareth Edwards from Godzilla 2014. And he's like, let's make Godzilla as realistic as possible, and we're going to make our own villain and stuff with the Mutos. And then in the next picture, it's Mike Doherty, and he's like, fuck it, Godzilla's gonna have his original dorsal plates. Mothra's gonna be in this bitch. Ghidorah's in it. Like, so he made a real Godzilla film, and I think that maybe some people weren't used to that. They wanted it more modernized, but for whatever reason, the kickback on that Godzilla versus Kong did good. So I guess it was a fluke, and we're back at it.
Well, I mean, Godzilla King of the Monsters still did amazing.
Yeah,
one of the highest grossing in the entire franchise. But it just, for some reason, critics didn't go with it. But I mean, for the other part, the other sequels, most of them, their box office reflected the critical scores that they had for the most part.
So bombs at the box office.
Yeah, they just kept
scores,
gradually getting worse for the most part, except apparently Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. And it's weird. Why is it all of a sudden we have Godzilla versus Godzilla versus Godzilla versus, and then there's a Godzilla against?
Yeah, I don't...
Like, why did you change the verses? Like, whatever. I didn't develop the movies. You know, I realized we never said anything about a train wreck for this episode.
We were just smoking. Yeah.
We've been smoking. I mean, you probably heard me hit the ball once or twice, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I realized just now as we're about to wrap up that there is no train wreck. So, I mean, really, Josh should thank us because he doesn't have to make that train a-coming.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, my our final thoughts and you know. On this week's episode is that, sure, you know, there's still monsters out there on your TV screen, like the clickers from The Last of Us. I guess they're more zombies, you know, but they are monstrous looking. But monsters aren't as easy to come by as they used to be. Most of the time, monster movies are made on shoestring budgets with terrible effects, and they don't get respect. Monster movies never really got respect. Or you end up with some terrible CGI monster, and nobody wants to see that shit. You know, so, but when you hit the nail on the head, so to speak, there's hardly anything better than a good monster movie. So what happened to the monsters? Where are the monsters that we grew up with that defined making our imagination explode and scare the piss out of us? John and I don't know, but we know that you can find them here on High on Horror.
Oh, that and a lot of weed. But apparently we'll forget to tell you that, you know, we're smoking because, you know, stoners, we got to announce it. It's like vegans. I'm gonna go smoke. I don't eat meat. All right. So I don't got an episode to announce to you. So that means you better follow us on social media. High on Horror 420, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can always send us some Puff Ass questions at highonhorror420 at gmail.com. Make sure to check out our website, highonhorror.com. And for me, I guess I'll about wrap her up.
Yeah, and I'd like to sign off with a quote here by the late, great Eiichiro Honda, who is a founding father of Godzilla and has directed 8 films in Godzilla's filmography. Monsters are tragic beings. They are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They are not evil by choice. That is their tragedy. See you next week.